다음 순서는 바로 이어서 진행할게요. 데이터Xu라는 회사에서 제임스 샘슨 아시아 총괄이 이제 발표할 건데요. 여기에 계신 분들이 마케팅 아닌 분들이 꽤 계셔서 지금 말씀하실 때 전문 용어가 몇 개 나올 겁니다. 그 중에 이제 애드테크라는 용어도 쓰실 텐데, 이거는 광고 테크놀로지 시장을 의미합니다. 기술. 요즘은 이제 광고에 그 테크놀로지가 굉장히 많이 들어오고 있습니다. 그 다음에 또 아마도 그 프로그래매틱이라는 용어를 쓰실 텐데요. 이거는 자동으로 광고를 체결해주는 그 메커니즘을 말합니다. 요새는 이 광고가 좋을지, 이 광고가 저 고객이 맞을지, 그거를 미리 추측하고 계산을 해줍니다. 시뮬레이션을 해주는 거, 그걸 자동 체결하게 해주는데, 그거 전체를 요즘은 프로그래매틱이라는 용어를 씁니다. 이 데이터Xu의 제임스는 제가 꽤 오래 알고 지내고 있고 아주 친합니다. 굉장히 스마트하신 분이고, 이 회사가 창립자가 그 나사의 우주 그 알고리즘을 만드는 엔지니어가 밖에 나와서 민간의 스타트업을 만들었어요. 그 회사가 데이터Xu라는 회사입니다. 그 기술이 광고에 들어간 거예요. 이제 실리콘밸리는 이런 회사가 좀 있는데요. 글로벌도 좀 있고, 이런 회사가 이런 그 배경이 있구나라고 알고 계시고 들어주시면 좋겠습니다. Okay, let me introduce the. You ready? Good. 자, 뜨거운 박수로 제임스 샘슨을 맞이해 주시기 바라겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you. Hi, can you hear me? Perfect. Thank you, John, for inviting me to speak here. I don't speak Korean, but I heard the word NASA. I just want to clear it up. I did not work for NASA. The great keynote speaker this morning, he did. The co-founders of DataXu came from NASA, and I'll kind of share a little bit about what that means and how that kind of permeates. What we wanted to talk about today, though, was how AI is kind of making its way into the marketing and advertising ecosystem. So I know from the attendance, there's some brands in the room, there's some agencies in the room, there's some media owners in the room, and then people from all other kinds of businesses. What we'll talk about today is how marketers and marketing professionals are kind of using data and using really advanced forms of machine learning and AI to make things a bit better from a marketing perspective. And there's really been a lot of advancement here over the last several years. So, just a quick introduction to me. I'm based in Singapore. I look after DataXu. DataXu is a technology company that allows you to understand, engage, and measure your consumers, mainly through paid advertising. I also work with organizations called the IAB and others that kind of help set industry standards. And formerly I was at Nokia when it was kind of a big company. What do we generally do is work with kind of marketers to understand their consumer, how they should engage them, what the right way to engage them, what the right places are. This is kind of a common problem across most marketing organizations. And if you kind of look at these stats, it's actually saying that in a few years, most of the interactions you have with a consumer won't actually be human to human. Your consumer is going to want to engage with you through kind of different ways. Like we'll look at what some of these are and what's coming out. But as an organization, you're going to have to get really good at providing customer experiences without that kind of human touch to it. Let's look at kind of what's happening, right? I think if you kind of think about your day-to-day lives, you'll see this coming more and more. Does anybody actually still order food from a person when they go to these restaurants? I don't. It's much better to do it from here. You see kind of fast food industries are actually starting to really take the automation seriously. Checkout counters. So I'm based in Singapore, so I see this, but these are Korean screenshots, so I'm assuming you kind of see these in your day-to-day lives as well. That's a new screen that as kind of the seller of consumer packaged goods or the operator of the retail store, that's a new place where you can engage your consumer and give them a good experience. Mobile banking. I love this. I kind of deposit checks, if you remember what those were. I talk to my bank. I can get like a new debit card in case I lose it, all without having to go to the teller. When I open up my favorite OTT app or pay TV service, I get recommendations as to what to watch. I don't have to think about it. And actually, like, I'll buy things because it's actually surfaced and really easy for me to find. We just heard about smart speakers. Well, it looks like it's a little bit different country by country, but these things are growing like weeds and kind of posing a big threat to people like Google. Sorry for anybody in Google in the room. I mean, they're on it with Google Assistant, but Amazon's on it too, and others are on it as the new way that people want to interact and search for things is through voice. This stat was kind of interesting. 4 billion devices have like AI-powered assistants. Not everybody's using them today. Some of them are better than others, but you can assume that kind of everything that you interact with in the future is going to have some form of voice search and voice assistance. Your cars? Cars are getting more and more connected every day. That really great infotainment system, that's a new way for companies to engage with you, or you to engage with the car manufacturer, or maybe in the future for you to engage with brands and restaurants and gas stations and whatever you want to do. TVs, almost every TV that's sold now is IP enabled. The interfaces are getting better and better, and more consumers are starting to watch content straight through here versus traditional means of going through TV and satellite. I put Amazon up here because I think they do a good job of this, but most consumers are starting to expect really good recommendations. Amazon, I think, being a U.S. U.S. origin person, I still think Amazon has the best recommendation engines out there. And I've kind of looked at all the e-commerce sites around here, but they do a really good job. It's like when I get to Amazon, I kind of have some pretty good things that I'm probably interested in buying. And watches, these are getting more and more prolific. I still have the original. My wife has this. I'm pretty sure she's going to start engaging with, banks and restaurants and brands and whatever through these watches as kind of people fine-tune the way that people want to engage there. So these are all new screens and new devices. That's more than just kind of like your PC and your mobile phone that people are kind of used to today. But if you can imagine, like, these are all forms of ways for you as a enterprise to engage with your customer and give them a really good customer experience. I say customer experience instead of just user experience because we want to kind of give a good, you want to delight your customer. You want to use information you might know about them to engage them and engage them in the right way. Now, after you figure out all these devices, it's like, what's the right way to actually talk to them? What offer should you give them? Should you be giving them a new promotion or preventing them from churning? But there's all these different ways that you can do it now. It's not just banner ads and video ads or SMSs or emails. There's all these places that you can now engage with somebody. And they've got to sort of fit those screens that we were just looking at to kind of make sure that it's relevant and a good customer experience. Here's the problem though. Like most of these data sources that you might use to kind of do this customer experience and customer messaging are still siloed. Things are getting better and better, but I'm sure if you go to any of your organizations, you'd say, man, I really wish this system spoke to this system, and the stuff I knew about somebody here was connected to something here. It's getting better, but it's still, from what I see, a problem. So you've got kind of your data. Sorry, I'm going to use this pointer that you might not be able to see very well. You've got your data, the stuff that you know about your consumer, and then you might have partners where you can kind of fill in the blanks a little bit about stuff that you don't know about your consumer. But as you kind of go for that elusive customer profile that really spans as much as you can know about the person or the household they're in, there's more and more data sources that you can kind of be mixing into the profile. And once you kind of spend all the time doing that, so collecting your data, collecting your partner's data, suddenly you have a problem around how do I actually use that in the real world? How do I kind of speak to my customer consistently everywhere? There's a problem here because all of these different screens that are up here and all the stuff that I showed you is coming down, they all have different identifiers. They all have different ways of kind of identifying who, not really who's using that device, but are they part of the audience that you want to reach? So we'll kind of get into the differences there. But this is a common challenge. Most organizations are focused up here. And then once they kind of get that profile to a place where they like it, they say, how do I actually use that data in the real world to engage with people seamlessly and consistently? And at the end, this is kind of what you want, right? All the stuff you know about somebody, Again, you don't have to know their name or phone number or email address. You don't have to have any of that personally identifiable information. But you want to use as much information as you know about somebody or the household to make a really good decision about where they are in relation to what you want to talk to them about. You might want to sell them something. You might want to give them a new offer. You might want to prevent them from churning. You might want to, I don't know, surprise them with something. But you want to align your messaging based on where somebody is. And you can use all this other information that you can glean about somebody to kind of make a better decision about what's the right message to show somebody. So it's not just reaching the right audience, it's reaching the right audience with the right message. That has, we'll see, has great effect. And if you don't do it right, it can actually have like negative effects. Consumers don't like it when you give them bad information. So I'm a bank customer. When I see kind of new customer acquisition ads for my bank, it upsets me. I'm like, what? You should know that I'm a customer, and you should stop wasting your money on this and give me something for like the new Visa card. But that's kind of the stage setting. So this is kind of the place where most marketers are at. They're still figuring out how do I fill in the profile of my consumer, prospect or consumer. How do I fill in all this information I might know about them, and then how do I go use it in the real world? And that's getting harder and harder as they're getting more and more fragmented across screens and devices. Way hard. It used to just be put a banner ad in a browser, and that's enough. But now the consumers are kind of using 4 or 5 devices. How are you going to keep up and make sure that you're kind of spending your money effectively when you're buying advertising? How do you make sure that you're emailing somebody correctly or sending them an SMS or giving them a notification in your app? Whatever it is, how do you make sure that that's actually an effective use of marketing communication? So this is where like AI really comes in. As you can imagine, all of these kind of digital devices are kicking off a ton of information and a ton of data, more than like anybody could realistically put together and use without some computer assistance. So places where AI can kind of help with overall marketing. I'm going to kind of zoom out into the marketing landscape, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the stuff around like personalization and advertising. But personalization definitely helps there. We've heard a lot of good examples of that. The automation, so actually, how much can you actually do as a human when you're kind of working with these different data sets? Customer experience, again, different than user experience. You can have a really good UI, but if that customer is not having a good experience because you're not surfacing the right recommendations for them, or you're not presenting stuff front and center so that they don't have to sit there and click through 15 menu items to get to what they want. This customer experience. And then just generally marketing mix. Like where should you be spending your money and putting your effort into reaching somebody in the most cost-effective way? So this is that idea of PII and non-PII, or personally identifiable and non-personally identifiable. If we go back here, most marketers have a pretty good grasp on this. How do I use PII? First of all, they want more of it. So I want people to give me their email addresses or their phone numbers or stuff like that so I can send them an email or send them an SMS or reach them on Facebook or whatever it is. I can get them into my loyalty programs. There's systems out there that help you do that. And then in the world of kind of online and these anonymous devices where you don't actually, from industry best practice and in some regulations in different parts of the world, you can't actually use things like PII to target advertising at people. It's pretty simple. So there's different systems out there to help you kind of with the paid media side of things. And so this is, if I go back, this is usually considered MarTech or marketing technology. This is considered AdTech or advertising technology. And there's different kind of tools that you would use. On the left here, there's like email systems and social listening systems and web analytics, all that stuff you might use to engage with consumer on a one-to-one basis. Here on the right side, you're kind of grouping people into audiences based on their behavior and what you know about them, and trying to reach them without the use of emails and phone numbers and all that. But different tool sets that are actually getting more and more joined together. Still not a perfect world, but actually a lot of progress is being made over the last couple of years to really be able to use all this information that you have here in a privacy-compliant way here. So when we look at things, we say, okay, you can kind of, if you want to message somebody, I say message because it's not just show them an ad. Again, I'm talking about marketing too. When you want to message somebody, you want to kind of use information that you might know. And you can kind of bucket it into, What's the right place to message them in? What type of message should I be giving them? And what do I know about the consumer to make sure that that message is fairly personalized and relevant? If you kind of break this down even further, this actually, this can get into things like, what device are they on? What website are they browsing? What TV show did they watch? What time of day is it? What part of the country are they in? What web browser do they happen to be using? There's all these little variables that you can use to kind of group together through AI to make a better decision. For creative, it's like, do I show the person the sedan ad or the SUV ad? Do I show it to them on the mobile phone or the PC? And from the consumer, you start to get into information like, has this person engaged with my website? Is this person a customer? Are they a high-value customer? What have they bought from me? All that type of stuff that you might be able to glean from here, you should hopefully use to inform what's the right ad to show somebody and what's the right place to show it to them in to get the best response. Now, what you're looking at here, it's a lot of words, but generally what we're finding is that AI can really help you deliver business results. It's pretty simple. A lot of people have spoken about it today. But this is giving you the ability to tie advertising or messaging or media to business results. If you look at it, you could say, well, there's sort of easy out-of-the-box measurement. So did somebody click on my ad? Did somebody open my email? Did somebody watch my video? Pretty easy to measure, pretty easy to track. Happens inside of kind of one device usually. But as you kind of move up to things like, did somebody buy something from me? Did somebody visit my store? Did somebody actually become a real customer? And what do I know about them? The more you kind of go up, the more complex it gets to measure. But luckily, it's actually all measurable now. We're in a place where you can do all this. It's just a little bit harder. So most people start down here on the left and work their way up as they start to use their data more and more to optimize things like messaging and media spending. I'd say most people in Korea are probably here, down in the bottom left. For advanced as a country is in so many different aspects of kind of consumer life and business. When it comes to marketing, still a little bit low in terms of adoption of kind of newer technologies. That's changing. I've been coming here for a couple years now, and I've definitely seen it moving up and up. You're starting to get simple things like, hey, if I showed somebody an ad, did they go and configure the car on my website? It's a little bit further past a click. It's more into things like engagement. Or, hey, I showed somebody an ad, did they buy something from my website? Or did they download my app? You're kind of moving up and up. But in other parts of the world, you're starting to really optimize marketing mixes on sales, like real sales happening in the real world. People actually going into stores. So it'll get there, the technology's there, but it kind of takes a little time for marketing organizations, their agencies, and media vendors to kind of align to pull this off. So I'll get into a few examples. This is more around kind of personalization of a website. Has nothing to do with advertising. But this is a different company, Dynamic Yield. They seem to be very, very good at personalization and kind of win awards from all the third parties around it. Here's kind of something where they help you personalize websites. So when somebody goes to your website, should you be surfacing different content and offers to them based on what you know about them? Kind of the concept you use in media, but now happening on your website. This is kind of an e-commerce example, but I've seen this work on other types of industries as well. But generally, if you can understand who's coming to your website, are they a current customer? Are they not? What day of the week is it? What part of the country are they coming from? If you can start to use all these little data inputs, you can actually start to surface really personalized experiences for them. And what they found is that, well, actually, there's pretty good results when you're starting to personalize things. People buy more from you, they buy faster, they buy more often, they engage and kind of pop around your site a bit more. But this is all kind of done through just kind of understanding who's actually coming. Generally, this is anonymous data still. You don't have to know the person, their name, their phone number. This is just kind of like web behavior. But a pretty good example that I would say sometimes gets left in the back. everybody's optimizing like the advertising and the messaging, but isn't really thinking about all the different places that a consumer can have an experience with them. All those different touch points. And websites and mobile apps are definitely there. If we get into sort of the paid media one, this is DataXu, so this is our company. But so I can speak with a little bit more depth on it. But this is super advanced stuff that's actually like just come to Korea, which is awesome. But this is a U.S. case study for a company called Columbia. Columbia is they make like jackets and sportswear and stuff like that. And what I remember all those different places that you could engage a consumer. Well, in the U.S. And in Australia, and actually now in Korea, more and more of these TVs are digitally enabled. So as an advertiser, you can actually take all the stuff that you do in the digital world around like targeting an audience and measuring them, and you can apply that to TV, which is pretty revolutionary. TV is kind of the biggest place advertisers spend their money, and now you're kind of bringing more and more addressability to it. But here they kind of said, hey, let's actually test out whether TV ads have an impact on people going to my website and buying something. And what you saw is that, I'll walk you through this in a couple of minutes here. This is kind of a lot of different uses of data and a couple different places where AI is kind of coming in to help. So in the digital world, you can kind of buy ads against third-party audiences. This is kind of there's like 40,000 audiences. These are kind of cookies and device IDs grouped into behaviors. And in this case, somebody's labeled a bunch of cookies as people who are outdoor enthusiasts, so people who like to go hiking and running and all that stuff. And then retail shoppers, people who just actively go to retail stores. Pretty generic. Those cookies are getting passed into our system, DataXu, and we're actually kind of saying, okay, here's the web browser of that person. What are the other kind of places that you can engage with them in? So their mobile phones, their TVs, you put a person up into a household. This is now taking stuff that you know digitally and kind of allowing a marketer to reach them everywhere. Then they said, well, actually, there's different ways that I can buy television now automatically. I can buy connected TV. So this is OTT apps being consumed on a television screen. And I can buy addressable TV. So I can target into pay TV set-top boxes, household by household. And so we're able to identify, the households that belong to these segments, and then actually break people out into control and exposed groups. So you can actually say these people got the Columbia advertising, these people did not. And then you can actually measure, like, did people from those households that were exposed to the ads, did they go to Columbia's website and buy something? And did they look at products and all the engagement that a marketer would want? What we found is actually, TV has a really big impact on people actually doing things in other places. That's I think what every person who sells TV wants to prove, and everybody who buys TV wants to prove. And now it's kind of provable, measurable, like household by household. And what you see is there's 36% increases, 40, 50% increases. If you're exposed to the TV ad, you're going to actually do what the marketer wants you to do. Now, where's the AI come into this? Well, there's sort of like big data and machine learning kind of happening around this area. Like, how do you kind of take a PC browser and turn that into all the other devices that household and person belong to? I wouldn't call that AI. More kind of big data and machine learning. The idea is, how do you actually make sure that you're serving the right message to the right people? And even though somebody's in these groups, if they're actually not going to go and buy something from here that you're measuring, stop showing them ads. And so it's kind of self-optimizing these campaigns using all the data at its fingertips to kind of automatically move money around and change who you're showing things to. This is all stuff that as a human you can't do. Because as we'll see in a second, like, you have to make a decision about whether you want to show somebody an ad or not in 50 milliseconds. So less than 1 second. You have to figure out, is this person who's watching this TV eligible for this campaign? What ad should I show them? And when I actually show them something, did they engage with it later? all that has to be crunched really, really fast. And there's no possible way that humans are getting into that type of speed. So this is where AI comes in, and this is kind of how it works, right? Consumer is consuming a device. So if you go to, oh man, I'm blanking on a Korean publisher. But if you go to CNN.com, there's going to be advertising there. And that website is going to say, hey, I've got an ad to show somebody, step number 2. And let me basically put that ad out for auction so that the person who wants to put, the brand that wants to put their ad there, whoever's willing to pay the highest, they win and they put their ad there. So this is all kind of what's referred to as programmatic marketing or real-time bidding, if you've heard that term before. The ad gets put out for auction, and then there's different companies out there looking at those auctions and listening. These are, again, 50 millisecond response times, and there's kind of like 5 million auctions a second, 24/7, just continuously. So you're kind of having, as a bidder, you're listening to all of these auctions, and you say, okay, I think that the ad on CNN.com and the person who's viewing it is worthwhile for me to put a message in front of. What message should I put there? How much should I pay for it? What's it worth to the campaign? If you win, your ad goes onto CNN.com, and then the consumer sees the ad. So as you're loading websites and loading mobile apps and watching VOD content on your TV, this is happening behind the scenes to show you the advertising. And then what happens is you have to actually measure, did the person who got exposed to the ad, did they go and sort of, who are the people that are going to the brand's website? Who's going to the app? Who's going to the thing that they want them to do? Who's configuring a car? Who's signing up for a credit card? If you can measure all that's happening downstream away from the advertising, you can then connect the two to say the person who saw the ad also went and did what the marketer wanted them to do. And again, this whole thing is super fast and happening across all these different devices globally. And so this is really where artificial intelligence has to come in. So what's powering this thing? So I'm not a CTO. I can do my best to talk through this, but I'm more of a business person. So I have a good understanding of this, but if you have really deep questions about this later, I'll refer you to our CTO who can answer. But what's happening behind the scenes? Well, if you remember those 3 circles, the consumer, the context, and the creative. You're looking at all of those pieces of information every time you can place an ad. And you're kind of saying, well, if I place an ad to a person in this part of the country who's looking at this website on this device, who has been to the brand's website before, and they're in this browser, and it's this time of day. If you take all those things, and there's kind of 100 that you can use to make a decision on, what's the likelihood that showing somebody this ad is actually going to result in them doing something? And so that's what this is trying to show you down here. It's these are different parts of the US. These are different advertisements from an auto manufacturer, and these are different times of the day. And what you realize is people are reacting to different advertising at different times of day, and creative actually makes a big difference into whether somebody's doing it. So when you see red, that means that there's a very, very high likelihood that showing somebody an ad at that time of day in that part of the country with this creative is actually going to result in somebody doing what you want them to do. And so you're going to pay higher for that. You're going to try to really win that ad. When you see blue, it's actually a low likelihood, so you'll kind of ignore it. Well, this is kind of the main AI behind real-time bidding and programmatic, is how can you make sense of all these variables and kind of do it quickly to make a decision fast and get results for the advertisers or marketing professionals that are using your systems. Now, to do that, we have a lot of infrastructure behind the scenes, a lot, where we get invited to the AWS summit to present about really advanced forms of machine learning. I'm not going to do it justice, but really what you're talking about here is tens of thousands of CPUs, tons of data centers, petabytes of data that you're processing. Petabytes, most companies don't know what petabytes are, but this is kind of, if you think about all the web traffic that we're evaluating whether to buy or not, that's what's coming through. And then the machine learning models are actually kind of updated daily. So every day, for every campaign, for every flight, it's kind of figuring out, do I understand the pattern of who's going to do what the marketer wants them to do here? And we use this, I've heard this term a couple times today, this random forest models. Apparently it's very efficient. Okay, so again, not the CTO, but very efficient. And what we have to do to make it work really quickly, 50 milliseconds, is clean up a lot of data before it gets to here. So there's a lot of processes happening with all that infrastructure before it gets to this, so that this can be done really, really quickly and updated across, tens of thousands of different campaigns on a daily basis. I don't know the difference between random forest and something else, but I've heard it a few times today, so it must be a good one. So that's kind of like buying. What we find is that actually when you think about those 3 C's, the consumer, the context, and the creative, it actually turns out that like the creative is the most important thing in determining whether a consumer is going to do what you want them to do. So you can show them an ad in the right place at the right time to the right person, but if the message isn't personalized and relevant, it actually doesn't have great success for the campaign. So you really need to that's what marketers are starting to move to, is they've done all this kind of data collection, and they're starting to use it more and more. And now they're starting to look at ways that they can actually make their kind of marketing and messaging more relevant to the people who are going to see it. And that usually means like creating more than one version of an ad, or sending out more than one version of an email. And there's tools and technology tools that allow you to kind of create these variations to align them to the right people. But this is kind of like the next place where most marketing organizations are going after they've conquered simple data collection. I'll go to one more example. I want to talk about like kind of workflow. So not only does kind of AI help with things like marketing effectiveness, but it's changing the way that marketing departments and organizations are kind of working to execute things. So traditionally, I don't know how many people in here are exposed to this, but in advertising agencies and marketing departments and marketing managers, everybody, things are a little bit siloed. They're getting better, but there was a TV department, there was a digital department, there was a mobile department. There's all these different places that are specialized in buying different forms of media. And now that they can all kind of be addressed through typically one platform, you're starting to see the mindsets of these organizations shifting a bit to be more audience-focused versus media-focused. And what that means is actually like people can spend a little bit more time figuring out what's the right message to show somebody versus how to actually execute it. Like how to actually go buy what they want to buy, or how to send the email out. And we kind of did a study on, again, this is our system, I don't have everybody's numbers, but I want to show how like AI can be surfaced in different ways throughout some kind of experiences. Before we were talking about AI for buying ads and buying ads relevantly, or kind of showing how AI can help personalize a website or personalize an experience. This is actually how you would actually help with workflow and making people more efficient at their day jobs and taking some of the grunt work out. This has happened in almost every industry, but marketing is still kind of still working on old school ways of buying and selling and transacting and operating and reporting. So it's kind of rife for automation. And so what we see is most of the people who are using our system, this is maybe a few years ago, when we look at what they're actually doing, they were doing things like changing how much they're willing to pay for ads, or moving money from kind of one thing to another. It's kind of like, it sounds easy, but it kind of takes somebody going in there and doing it every day to kind of optimize a campaign. They said, hey, like there's got to be a better way to do this. And so we again, we're I don't know if I mentioned we're from MIT, so a lot of pretty hardcore data scientists in the company. And they said, hey, I think we can solve this problem, make it easier for our users to use our software and get them better results. I don't know what this is, some sort of math diagram. Maybe somebody in the audience knows. But generally, each one of these dots is like a different campaign that somebody's running in the system for their own marketing activity. And what they're trying to do is figure out like, how do I kind of move some levers around to actually get better cost per acquisitions, or spend more money, or spend it cheaper, all these kind of common things. And so instead of having to go like download all the data, sit there and do things in Excel, and then go change things in a platform, we just said, hey, like why don't we be a little bit more like Amazon and just surface recommendations to people? Like, why don't we make it a really good user experience where they can just come in and kind of see something that's kind of geared towards their workflow and makes their job easier? And so, so what you see here is actually a recommendation tool. You know, it's called Cruise Control in our system. I don't know if other systems have it, but people seem to like it because it's kind of taking the like day-to-day boringness out of their job and letting them do other things. So this will tell you like, yep, you're currently spending this much here. We think you should spend this much, and you're currently paying this much. You should be paying that much. And if you want more delivery of your campaign, you want to buy more ads, you know, here's what we would change. And if you think that's good, you know, go hit the green button and it will change it for you. If you want to move the sliders around, you know, kind of put those constraints on there, like people were speaking about earlier. You know, as a user, you sort of have a bit of control over what happens. But if you move it around, you know, the numbers change. And if you want more campaign performance, you know, it changes some more. But really, this is kind of helping the user figure things out on how to do it, what they would normally do in 45 minutes, they can do in about 10 seconds. So there's a lot of like machine learning and AI happening behind the scenes to pull that off. You know, to show those little numbers and recommendations, there's obviously a lot of math going on behind the scenes. But this is something around, again, customer experience. Our customers are users of the platform. Your customers might be trying to use your bank or trying to buy a car or trying to go grocery shopping, whatever it is. What we find is actually, when you do this well, like people use it a lot. And the people who thought that a computer couldn't make a better decision than they could are suddenly using it the most. They're getting better campaign performance. They're saving 75% of the time they used to do on this. All this stuff is great. And actually, you know, we were a little nervous at first because, you know, people want to think that they're the best at things, you know, naturally. So nobody thinks that like a computer can do a better job than they can. But you know, this is like the same stuff that happens in financial trading and all these other industries, logistics. It's now just happening to marketing. And what happens is that, people like it and just started telling us like, please just turn it on automatically. I don't even want to like have to hit the green button anymore. Just make it happen behind the scenes. So with that, you know, those are a couple different ways of how AI is helping marketers, hopefully that was relevant and helpful. I think, you know, we didn't coordinate on presentations here, but I have the same idea. Is like be responsible with your data powers. Here's a, you know, nothing to do with online marketing, but something where, I think Twitter, you know, somebody's saying, hey, like my father lives in a nursing home or assisted living. He got a Christmas basket from the local mortuary, you know, where you go to be buried. So, you know, just because you can actually message somebody and you know about them, you know, make sure that like the marketing isn't going to freak them out and creep them out and get too personalized, right? So with that, thank you for having me up. Hopefully it was helpful, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.